So one of the things that fascinates me so much that I take time to keep doing videos for this channel is the numbers. I like to share this whole big experience, this whole big experiment, which is how much did I make in a given period from different music incomes? And it's kind of a, I know, it's kind of a problem I have, but it's fun to track. I'm a nerd. I love that. And I kind of broke down what I made a few weeks ago. And that video is down in the description after you watch this one. But I'm also interested in how other people made music income in 2024. And so I have been going crazy and sending emails and doing polls all over the place to try and gather as much data as I can about how you made music income in 2024. So today's video will be about two things. Number one, how are people just like you making music income, and how did you make it in 2024? And not just with the kind of things we talk about all the time, sync licensing, stock music licensing, but also things like streaming to Spotify and Apple Music and things like that, gigs, producing, teaching. You may be surprised by the results. I'm not necessarily, but we're going to talk about that so you can see how other people are making music income and how they made it last year. And then in part deux, I want to give you my best advice for which things you should probably do based on the data we saw, what people are saying they're going to do and what they did, and which ones you may want to give up entirely depending on who you are. Yes, we're going to talk about the thing that most people want to talk about on this channel. We're going to talk about sync licensing for sure. I mean, everybody wants to talk about that. But is that what you should be doing? We talk a lot on this channel about doing it, how to do it. But I don't always talk about if you should do it. And so a little bit of that is going to be talked about today. We're also going to talk about sync licensing, redheaded half-brother, you know, the one that keeps disappointing you over and over. But you're just fascinated by the numbers and you keep watching it like a car wreck. Stock music licensing, we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And then we're going to talk about streaming on Spotify and other places, making money as an artist, as a producer, as a teacher, and even working at a church. Maybe we'll just talk about that for a second. But what do you need to do to get better and make more music income in all of these things? Well, let's today get into your numbers from 2024 and how you can make music income in 2025. Well, welcome to the Make Music Income podcast. My name is Eric Copeland, and somewhere it says that. And all I have to do is press a button, and voila. This whole podcast and everything is part of MakeMusicIncome.com. I talk every Friday here on Zoom about the ever-changing, that's what we're going to be talking about today, the exact numbers and percentages of what people are making and what they made in 2024, what they're going to make in 2025. And we're going to be talking about all that stuff, being a music composer for licensing, a producer to make music royalties, arranger, all these things I talk about on this show. And you can go to MakeMusicIncome.com and find all our free and paid ebooks. We even have we have a ton of free things. Everything is free. I mean, all our ebooks are free. You can start our courses for free. So everything is kind of free. Just go to MakeMusicIncome.com/free and get the free stuff. And I also have a program to work directly with you. It's called our Positive Spin Partners program. That is by invitation only, and it is much more personal and it's not for everybody. So check that out if you're interested. If you're looking for a partner, if you're looking for someone to work with, and your music, you want to take 2025 by storm. 2024 did not work for you. You're going to look at these numbers and go, yeah, that happened to me too. Or I didn't do as good as I'd like to do. And so if you're interested in that, look at the Positive Spin Partners information below. Now, I want you to remember something. This is a podcast. I've started to take the best parts of these podcasts and make little bite-sized chunks, not shorts, but shorters, I like to call them. So if you would like to be part of the questions, and I'm going to take some questions here today from those of you who are watching right now, make sure you leave some questions in the chat. Say hi. Let us know you're here. And then just keep watching. Watch the whole thing, because even though I'm going to talk about my week and I'm going to talk about the news, I'm going to kind of slant it all towards this 2024 income and towards what we should be doing for 2025. And they all are part of that. Everything I talk about on this podcast is part of what we need to be doing to make music income. That's why the channel is called Make Music Income. So if you have questions, make sure to join us every Friday here on YouTube, and also listen to the live podcast on Apple and Spotify podcasts every Monday morning. So I hope this helps you make the music you love to make and make music income in 2025, because that's what this is all for. Before we get to the topic, and the reason why this is a podcast is because it's not a cut down video that's so fast and furious, but I like to talk about my week, because I think the things I do during the week are things that many of you would like to do or are doing, and maybe, just maybe, you want to have someone and feel like there is someone who is on your side, who understands what you're going through, or you can understand what I'm going through. But it's every week's different. And this week has been again, this is the month of briefs for me. And I've been finishing finally some briefs for Sync Libraries. I turned in a country pop song that I did with John, who is one of my Positive Spin partners, to BMG, to an opportunity there. We finished up we're kind of in the middle of finishing up the mixes on 4 country pop songs for an APM library. And then that will be turned in probably next week, I would hope. And then I turned in a Celtic album with Ruth, who is one of my Positive Spin partners, to a new library I'm working with in Los Angeles. And I'm trying to finish a 10-song album, which I'll be working on today, with a drummer for a new library that has requested a 10-song pop album from us. So after this, right after I get done here, I'm going to be recording with one of my drummer producers at his fancy new home studio in Nashville and testing out multi-camera sessions that we're going to try to set up there so that we can cut music, have clients be there, be watching, and kind of be part of the action with us. And so I think every week is going to be loading new things to libraries, pitching to new libraries, finishing songs, of course, but also trying to get songs ready. There's a lot of stuff you have to do for libraries to get them the right stems they need, all the different tracks and all that kind of stuff. And while I was doing that, I got a surprise call yesterday from one of the presidents, or the president of one of the libraries, that is starting to get me some nice placements, including an NFL CBS placement they got me. And we had a great call. And one of the beautiful things about being in touch with the people that you're working with is that they can take more music from you than you would have if you had not ever had a conversation with them. So that's kind of cool that because we had this conversation, I have the opportunity now to send her 2 playlists today that she can now, the president of the company, and this isn't the people that I've been talking to, this is the actual person who owns and started the library, and they want actual, what do you do? Let me hear exactly what you do and go over it and see if there's anything else that we might want from you. So that's a good thing. I had a great interview yesterday, and I'm not going to spoil who it is. It's another Sync personality on YouTube, but it may be one that you don't know as well. And he's kind of in a similar place to me, and that will hit about this time next week. And in this video, we're going to talk about the thing everybody wants to know. What are the top libraries and how do you get in them? And we both have similar styles and similar successes with this way of getting in a library. So we're going to share that next week. So be sure that you subscribe and or are here next week to be part of that video, because that's going to be pretty cool. Just have just the tiniest little bit of news. And so let's get to that right now. My camera is on the slow crawl down today. I don't have it set very well. So a few weeks ago, I told you about that Motion Array, which is a non-exclusive library, changed its payout structure to its authors, at least the music authors, like as I am one. And there's always been this kind of percentage way they paid people on how many downloads you had. You get a bigger percentage of the pie that they get from all their music subscribers on Motion Array. This is a library called motionarray.com. If you are a music maker, if you are a music producer, a composer, and you have songs that you think might go well on underneath people's YouTube videos, well, you might want to consider Motion Array. I will warn you, they are very high quality focused. So if your music is not, if your music's not what you would send to sync libraries, then likely you should not be probably sending to Motion Array. But there has been a lot of brouhaha. There has been a real pushback from Motion Array authors who are very upset. Some quitting Motion Array and some being banned, from what I hear, from Motion Array after years of working with them, which is too bad. That's not the way it should go, I don't think. But the new numbers, though, so far, are not entirely depressing, at least for me. They are lower, for sure, I think. But I'm getting the same amount of downloads. We'll just have to wait till the end of the month to see how the price changes affect my prices. And of course, I might do a poll at that time. But Motion Array is not exactly my very, very first focus, as I focus on other things, including and mainly sync licensing, and also working with people and producing them. This is a terrible time to judge how a library is going to pay, because it's January. And January is usually a very depressing month in stock music because everybody downloaded all they needed for Christmas, and there's nothing to celebrate in January except winter. And February is going to be even worse. It's always much worse. So it's going to be a long, cold winter, folks, even here in sunny Florida. And the trouble is we won't know until a few months from now how this is, until the ice thaws and we all find out how this really shakes out. My estimation is probably about a 30 to 40% cut at that particular library. And there's going to be one as well with Pond 5 with the rates changing there. So we're going to talk more a little later in this video after I give the numbers for 2024. We're going to talk a little bit about the world of stock music licensing, non-exclusive stock music licensing, and how that's worked out. You're going to see where everybody falls in that, and from the data I gathered. And speaking of that, we're going to do that next. It is time, my friends, to talk about what we're all here for today. And that is, what or how did you make music income in 2024? So I have done a lot of work here. I have done a lot of polls and surveys and emails, and I've done polls here on the site, which are very good, and we're going to look at those today. I've done polls in our Discord that are very good, and we're going to look at those today. And the very first one we're going to talk about is, where did you make music income in 2024? All right, so as you can see, the number one, the big blue piece here, 60% of people made money in stock music licensing, followed by 34.5% of people also made music in sync or in streaming. And then teaching and gigs and sales came in after that. And production was at 25% of people did music production. We're going to talk about what this means, all these. I have this other category, and usually if you see the other category in this, it means they didn't do anything. They they just didn't, either they didn't do anything, or they're getting ready to do something, or they may have done some kind of event production or something like that, which I think I would throw in gigs and sales, or production. But and then you see church, and then writing music on commission at 7.3%. And somebody just gave us a thumbs up. And if you think this information is valuable to you, I've taken a lot of time to put all this information together. If it's helpful, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, because it'll help other people jump in here and see what we're talking about here today and watch this video. But I know a lot of people ask me these questions, just like Lovely Fishing Rod was asking me these questions. What are people mainly into? Well, you can see where at least it was for 2024. Most people were interested in stock licensing, and that's how they made any music income in that year, in the last year. This is down a bit, actually. I think if I remember back, more people were in stock than the year before than they were this year. And sync, I don't know if that's up or down from last year, but you see sync and streaming, which I'm encouraged by, because I think sync and streaming are likely the two places you should start to be focusing. We'll talk about that a little later. Teaching is another thing we're going to talk a little bit about today as we get down into what to do for 2025 if you want to make music income right away. All right, so let's move on to how much did you make in non-exclusive and stock libraries and sites like Pond5, Motion Array, Song Trader, Audio Jungle, all that. And so here is the breakdown for that. And you can see over here that the majority of people, and this is where the science comes in here, a little music income science. We're going to see some general consistencies through this data here, because the more you do, the more you make, the less you do, the less you make. So the largest percentage is $0 to $100 made in non-exclusive and stock libraries. And so if 34.5%, a good section of this is people who did not make a lot of money in stock music, because this goes to everybody. And a lot of people are just starting, or are just not putting much in, and we'll see that in a minute. Now, here's the funny part. The rest of the pie is more than that. There are more people making more than $100 than making less than $100. And so especially you see the very next one, $5,000 plus, 20% are making $5,000 plus. Now, we'll see why here in just a minute as we look at these totals here. If we come down here to how many songs, and not tracks, because in stock music you can put in not just a full song, but you can put in many versions of that song. And so sometimes that can help you have a little inflated number of how many songs you have. But in this one, you can see that, again, almost the exact same size total. If we look at this chart, which is how much did you make? Look at this section right here. And if you look at this chart, how many songs do you have in there? Look at the section right here. These correlate. The people who make the least, put the least in. I talk about it all the time on this channel. And I work my butt off all week for this very thing, quantity. Once you reach the place where you can make things in quality, quantity is the next thing you've got to have. Because you can see how that the majority of people have only 1 to 25 songs in these libraries. And as it goes up, you see that people have 16.4% have 50 to 100 songs. That's getting to be a lot of songs. If we go up to maybe the next place, 25 to 50 songs, and we just keep looking at these comparisons between this, we see that the people who made the most put the most in. Now, the way you tell that in this chart is if we look at these numbers here, which is 500 to 1,000 songs or more, which some people are, 1,000 to 2,500 songs, which is a crazy amount. But look, 7.3%. We look at anything but the first number. I mean, we're talking the opposite of 27 76.3. 73% are doing more than 25 songs. And if we go up here, about 68% are making more than $100. And some are making more than $5,000. So it is crazy, but they do correlate. Now, let's look at which library made them the most money in 2024, which stock library. And this is overwhelming in Pond5's favor, probably mainly because of the payout we got from AI uses of our songs. I would imagine that's the reason. The main three, which are the main three for me, are Pond5, Motion Array, and Audio Jungle. And Audio Jungle is only at 9% because no one's been able to get in Audio Jungle for a lot of years. So this has become a problem for people who want to make music income. They want to be on these libraries, but they can't get into Audio Jungle because it's no longer open. And it's kind of crazy because you also can't join Envato Elements without an invitation. So you're not going to be part of the Envato Elements or Audio Jungle platform. But as we can see here, Pond5 was the big winner and Motion Array the second and Audio Jungle next. And then a few other people, not many Artlist people, took this poll, I don't believe, because I believe if they did, they would have made the most income there if they are. Most people who I know who are in these Artlist type of mid-tier libraries are doing very well. Identify, shockingly, was not anyone's, not actually shockingly, to be honest with you, but Identify was not even close to being anyone's top library. Now let's see where everybody made something in it. So this question was, what stock library and or site did you make any but more than zero income in 2024? Well, Pond5 was the highest, but after that, Audio Jungle, which is kind of shocking. Next up is Identify, where here comes Identify as everyone's second or third option as far as how much they made. And Motion Array brings up fourth with Motion Elements after that. And then you can see that they go down and just become little pieces of the pie here. But this is interesting. If you take out Pond5, Audio Jungle, Identify, and we just start here at Motion Elements, that means that a lot of people are making money in a lot of places still, even a little bit. And there are some people who will tell you that stockmusic.net was the only place they made income. I didn't have that one in my question, so it didn't catch that. There are some people who will tell you VFine Music or 100 Audio make them a lot of money. I do pretty well in SongTrader, but most people don't. So there are some of these libraries that are still making something. So it's not something that we can completely ignore. And so we need to be careful with that. All right, now, next question. Here's the big telling question, and I want you to pay attention to this because we're going to talk about this a little later. Do you plan to do more? I'm probably in the way here. Do you plan to do more or less stock and non-exclusive sites in 2024? And even with all the craziness and the hand-wringing and the angry words and bans and all this kind of stuff, still, almost 67% of people answer that they plan to do more stock and non-exclusive libraries in 2024. I find that interesting. And we're going to talk about if that's something you should do. We're going to talk about that. All right, now let's zoom back out here and talk about how much did you make working with exclusive and non-exclusive sync. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with online libraries as much. Again, we're going to see the same thing we saw in stock music. The more you do, the more you make, and the less you do, the less you make. The important part here is the less you do, the less you make. But how much did you make working with sync libraries? And 36.4%, about half on this chart. As far as the numbers I have, I did not include the other category because a lot of people who don't make anything, that's not that interesting. 36.4% made between $0 and $100 in sync last year. Now, this is a harder road to hoe. It really is a harder thing to do, and we're going to talk about if you should be doing it for 2025 and why, or maybe you should or shouldn't be doing it in 2025. But I think this is an important thing to look at, because look at what number 2 is in this next orange section here, is 12.7. As a matter of fact, look at the rest of all the totals and look at half of people in this poll are making more than $100. And if we took just the people who are making, let's say, $1,000, 500 to 5,000 or so. I mean, we start to get to a bigger, a 30% that equals this 30%. So about the same number of people who make less than $100 make over $100, sometimes over $500. And you can even see that 10% almost make over $5,000 in sync. So that really heavily outweighs how much anybody made in stock. I think the biggest category I have in stock is 5,000 plus, and 20% made over $5,000 in stock last year. It'll be interesting to see if that total changes next year. I don't even know if I will track stats for stock next year. I probably will, because like I said, nerd alert. But again, let's look at this data here. Half the people are making under $100. And if we look at how many songs that do you have in non-exclusive or exclusive or non-exclusive libraries, it's the same old story. More than half have less than 50 songs in there. And again, I bet I could put a lower number, 25, 15, 10, and this number would still be very high. Or none. Look, 71, 72% have zero or up to 50, under 50 songs in sync. And so, of course, that's why these charts look the same. That's why only 36%, that's why 36% of the people, which is really a bigger percentage, as you can see, it's more like 50% in these two pies, these two charts look very similar. And that's because they are the same people. The people who are only making less than $100 are the people who've only put 0 to 50 songs in. And I have seen and continue to see my year-on-year income increase in sync as I put more in. And you'd probably see the same thing in stock if you do stock music. I know a lot of people do stock music. All right, so here's the question that I find interesting in 2025. And when I ask people, do you plan to do more or less sync in 2025? Well, this is not really a surprise. 88.5% of people say, I'm going to be doing more sync in 2025. I find it interesting, but I don't find it super surprising because I think most people say they're going to do that. All right, so let's continue this. We're almost done with this portion of the party here. How much did you make in 2024 from DSPs like Spotify through distributors like DistroKid, CD Baby, etc.? This is one of the things that I think we've got to pay attention to, and one of the things that I think we tend to put down in importance because it's not cool, like getting your music on TV and all that kind of stuff. But as you can see, the biggest number here, as usual, is $0 to $50 made through Spotify. But you're going to see the same thing here in just a minute and prove my entire point again. 500 to 1,000 is the next number right here in the green. And that's 10% of people made over $500. How many songs do you have up in distribution? Well, same problem. The people who have the least make the least. And this continues through all of these charts if I go through them. I'm not going to go through every chart like this. As a matter of fact, let's move over to something else I want to show you, which is, do you produce music for others? 58% don't produce music for others. And then I asked how much people made, and as usual, the largest percentage was 0 to 100, because again, most people aren't doing it, and so they probably put 0. And there are some people who did put 5,000 plus. I'm probably one of those people. I'm absolutely one of those people. And then we have a bunch of other people who just don't produce it. So didn't ask this question exactly right. But the interesting thing here is, do people produce music for others? And the answer in most cases is no, at least with 60%. That might be a little bit of growth as far as more people are producing with 41.8% for other people. And that might be something that's come up. Let's go on to the next question. Do you make music income as an artist through gigs and or merch sales? 38.2% yes, but the winner is no, with 61.8%, almost 62% of people do no gigs, do no merch sales. Now I know why, and we'll talk about that in a little while. And again, with their income, it's the highest thing is going to be don't make music as an artist or low. So these answers really aren't that helpful. Do you make music income in music teaching of any kind? Now, as someone who has recently left the world of organized teaching, and I mean, I guess you could call this teaching, what I'm doing here today. I do enjoy sharing information, obviously, because I am a music income science nerd, but this is something that I think is a low-hanging fruit for most of you who want to make music income. And you can do it in your home, and you can do it online. I know I just talked to someone last week who does music teaching 100% online and has 40 students and makes a good living. This is a way that you can make music living. You want to quit your job? Or we're going to talk about this and other things. And then the very last thing I ask on here, which is probably the least popular thing on this channel or on any questionnaire of any kind, is do you make music income in church of any kind? As you can see here, 89.1% said no, and only 10% or 11% made more. Let's stop here and look at some thoughts from people who are leaving some content. Shane here, who, by the way, is one of the probably 10% or 11% who does make music income out of church, and significantly, says, interestingly, I made more money in physical CD sales than in my Spotify income from the same music. Yeah, I think that all depends on audience, probably. Shane, you do solo piano music. That's an older crowd, most likely. Not necessarily, I mean, like only old people, but you know what I mean. It's a older tech and older people and people who still use that technology and who enjoy piano music. Solo piano music are more probably one and the same. And they probably prefer physical CDs to Spotify. I would be interested, was this through through Bandcamp, or was this in person? And stuff like that. I think that would be interesting to know. Oliver Mack says, I'm not getting how SongTrader works. How do you make money there? The way I make money there is that I put just every song up, and then I put it under all the stuff I put in stock. I put up there, and I put them into these opportunities that they have for overhead music, for other kinds of things. There are other kinds of music licensing, not television, not YouTube. Well, they do have a YouTube one and all that kind of stuff, but they don't have really a license. You can license it to use on TV and stuff like that, but SongTrader has a lot of different opportunities for making music, including being included in different kinds of projects that are collections, and then also being used in video games and things like that. Shane says he sold his CDs in person through the church bookstore, another church music income stream. Yeah, and this is a little bit of a homer income. I mean, you've got a church who sees you on the stage, and they know you personally, and they love you, and so this used to be the way before COVID. Even COVID was the final nail, I think, in worldwide CD sales, especially artist CD sales. But before COVID, we had a lot of CD sales, and Still, I think CDs can be something that people will want signed and take home with them as a memento. But then again, you are at a church where there might be a lot of people who go home and listen to music on CD. Um, uh, that is likely a way. And you have a platform, literally, at the church where you play your music and people want to hear it. So very interesting. Lovely Fishing Rod says, have you revealed your YouTube earnings in live stream before? Oh, they're not good. I'll tell you. I think it only pays about, I'd say all of YouTube income as far as what Google pays me is, I'm lucky if that's $100 a month. All right. So that is the data that I collected there. And I want to show you some other data that I've found before we move on to how to make music income in 2025 and my suggestions for how to do that. Now I want to go over to the channel and show you some things that I have been doing there. This is something I asked people yesterday. Let's refresh and see if we got any more votes. This is about as many votes as I had, almost exactly as many votes as I had in the entire survey that I just showed you. And I asked, how much did you make in all music income in 2024? Not just licensing, not just Pawn 5 or whatever, but how much did you make in all of your music income? And 73% who watched this channel, who saw this poll, said under $10,000, which means it's a part-time pursuit for you. Now, that's not bad. I mean, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 is not bad as a side income. Likely, if you are a money winner for your household, this is $10,000 is a tenth of what you need at least to make the bills. If you're not, and you're just kind of doing this as a side income, you have another job, well then anything under $10,000 is a win. 2,000, 1,000, 500, who cares, right? If it's a hobby, side hustle, then that's pretty good. But also you need to look at these other things. 11% say they make under $25,000. That means they're making somewhere between $10,000 and $25,000 a year. 11% say they're making under $50,000. That means they're making between $25,000 and $50,000. Well, that's a job. For some people, and I know these people, they look at, I've got one guy I work with who makes 60, 70 grand a year in music, and it's a part-time pursuit outside his normal job. He just does it as I don't think it's a hobby at that point, but it is for fun. You know, he's having fun doing it. And then over 50,000, that would be people like myself, people who are, that's all they do. There's no other income. So that's all the music incomes, including anything I do with this channel or courses or the bigger things, which is really music production, is what makes me the most money. And then all kinds of other incomes after that all add up. I also asked people, by the way, I did ask people if they like 60-second shorts or under 10-minute edited videos, and it's obvious people would rather see edited, shorter, longer, but shorter videos, wide videos. And so that's what we'll be doing. I asked people in two different places, do you make over or under $600 with Pawn 5 in 2024? And 69% here on this poll said they made, almost 70% said they made under $600 with Pawn 5. And 31% said they made over $600 with Pawn 5. I only asked this question because I made $600 with Pawn 5 last year. So I wanted to see what the over-under was. All right, let's, also I said, did you make over or under 1,000 with Motion Array in 2024? And not as many votes because not everybody's with Motion Array, but 64% said under 1,000 and 36% said over 1,000 for the year, which is, I made just a hair over 1,000, which actually was up from last year. But then again, I do not really focus on this as my main income as far as stock music, or it's really become the redhead stepchild. I asked the same question in our Discord. If you're not in our Discord, you should get in our Discord. Let's see if this stays the same here. How much did you make in all music income in 2024? Now, these are much more professional people and or focused people in music. So if you're a focused person in music and you want data or you want to ask questions, you should be in this Discord. You'll find that in the description below, how to get in our Discord. But it's free, by the way. So you can see how people made income in this particular thing. 45% made under 10,000, which is a lot different than the other poll, which on this poll, it was 73% made under 10,000. In this one, you can tell it's a little bit different. Of course, not as many votes, but under 10,000 was 45%. The next highest was under 25,000 with 20%. But that still leaves 35% of us who made 25,000 and up in music income in 2024. And over here, unsurprisingly, because this is in the stock music folder of Discord here, did you make over or under $600 with Pond 5? Well, it's opposite here. 61% made over $600 with Pond 5, and also with Motion Array, not surprisingly, 60% made over $600 in Motion Array as well, and 40% made under $600 in Motion Array. All right, so I think that's, wait a minute, I do have one other thing to show you. In sync licensing, I did some polls over here, and I asked how much income did you make from sync licensing in 2024? Under 5,000 was 67%, which is a little less than, I think I asked the question differently in the poll, but over 10,000, sorry, under 10,000 was 22%, and over 50,000 was 11%. So that's kind of interesting. But I also asked, did you make more in quarterly PRO income or upfront sync royalties? This is not a surprise to me. The majority of people made 67% made more in PRO. I think you'd find that across the board in sync. And then how many sync focus libraries do you have songs in? Well, this surprised me a little bit that a lot of people have 56% have one, but 44% are in 2 or over 10, over 11, or sorry, over 10 libraries. So, in my conversation yesterday with Sync Guy, he's in 15. I'm getting close to 10, even though probably the ones that I focus on are more of a handful, because you have to kind of decide and find out who's going to really get you syncs and then not work with who doesn't. So those are the questions. That's how things kind of worked out. Lovely Fishing Rods. I don't think people will be able to make 60 to 70,000 a year consistently with music alone. Things keep changing in this business all the time, and that hurts existing artists who already have a big catalog. Yeah, maybe. I think it depends on how hard you work it and how easy it is for you to quit. If it's easy for you to quit, then yeah, you won't. If you are someone who makes that, and that's the only way you can make money, you will hustle your butt off. If you have another income, you will stop the hustle. I know this for sure, because when I started teaching a couple years ago, I let up on the gas, and I started taking on less things. And I was already doing this channel when I got that. So this channel really didn't have anything much to do with it. But I let up on the gas as far as clients I was working with, people I was working with. I didn't even have a thought about the Positive Spin Partners thing. Then when I decided to leave the teaching job this year, I put the foot back on the gas. And that's what it takes. And that's really that's a great kind of, thank you for that, Lovely Fishing Rod, because we're going to move right into the next section of this and the last section of this. Let's talk about how to make music income in 2025. Now that we've seen these numbers that people are giving us, where do we go to make music income? That we've seen the numbers from what people made in 2024, and you know what you've made. But let me just kind of highlight some things that I've just been doing a lot of research. Always doing research, and I am a research subject myself by doing them all. That's one reason why I still do this channel, because it's fun to do the thing and then report on the thing. But let's go back to the stock music thing, just since it's the low-hanging fruit here. And let's look at the outlook for 2025. So in my poll, 66%, almost 67% of people said they are going to do more stock music in 2025. You know what? I hate to say it, but I think that's a mistake. I think unless you are already making four figures a month with it, or hundreds and hundreds of dollars, like $5 to $100 or more with it, which some people are, maybe you should keep doing it because it's been a good income for you. And so I'm not going to ask you to take that bread out of your pocket. But for myself, someone who makes, as you saw a couple of weeks ago on my video about what I made percentage-wise in 2024, I am relegating stock to only public domain writing, arranging, holiday, patriotic, classical stuff that is not my personal stuff. I'm systematically taking down all my other things that I've put up there over the years, seeing what would work, throwing stuff against the wall, see if it would stick. It didn't stick, or it didn't stick enough to make me enough money, as much really as the public domain stuff does. The classical, the holiday, the patriotic, that does way better than my original stuff there. Where my original stuff really works is with sync libraries. So why not take those down, rev them up, add some players, do some different mixes, and pitch those albums out to sync libraries for longer term income and use and possibilities. This is what seems to work for me with stock as far as the classical and arranging of holiday music and different things like that. And also I'm going to be making a change with Content ID because I am not confident that Content ID is going to continue to pay as well as it has in the past. And some people are seeing no change and some people are saying way less. I am one of the way lessers. I don't know of anyone who say it's going up. And I think, and I truly believe, that we are in a post-Content ID time. I think people have figured out how to claim things and clear a claim and not have to pay for using a song on their video. And so monies have stalled and gone down dramatically. So unless you're just completely doing this as a hobby and experiment, then that's fine. That's what I'm doing it for, really. I'm kind of just seeing what happens. I've always done that with stock. I got signed to my first sync library with BMG before I even heard of stock music. And I kind of got into stock as a side hustle too. And so to me, it's still something that's interesting to watch and look at. It's almost like a sideshow. You can't pull away. But I'm going to take all my original stuff out and only leave in my stuff that's active in the few stock libraries I'm going to stay in, which are Pond 5, Motion Array, and Audio Jungle, and Song Trader. Now, you might say, why take out? What if somebody uses your song? They download it on Spotify. Listen, they're going to do that anyway. And oh no, I'm going to lose I had the best month, the second best month this year on Identify in October, and that was $40. You know, it's time to be thinking about bigger fish here, folks, than $40 or $20 or $11 or $2. I can't count pennies anymore. So I'm going to suggest to you, and here it is, I'm me suggesting it, that you look elsewhere for music income, maybe except for just doing some music that you don't have any place else to put it, and it seems like maybe this is a good idea. Nick B says, does Identify have a conflict with DistroKid's Content ID? Yeah, any of them do. You can't put a song in Identify and any other Content ID collector. Only one person or one company can collect Content ID for a song. You can't have two places. So you can't like put your music in CD Baby and then use their Content ID and then put it in Identify. So I still think, as far as I know, and if anybody has any data on this, I'd love to know. Identify is better than using CD Baby or DistroKid to collect your Content ID. I just can't still believe that they would work harder than a company that only concentrates on it. So that's just me. So hope that helps, Nick. Jonathan Carlos says, I have to disagree with you, Lovely Fishing Rod. My 2024 income was just more than twice the number you wrote, but you have to work your backside off and not give up and always learn. And he's talking about the comment that Lovely Fishing Rod says that I don't think people will be able to make 60 or 70,000 a year consistently with music alone. Well, Jonathan and I can both tell you, yes, you can, because we have been doing it and providing for our families with that I've been doing it for 20 years or more. So it can happen. It does happen. And it happens for all the pros I work with in Nashville. And that's because they hustle. And they hustle more than people, and they stay in it for 20, 30 years. And they don't quit and get distracted by some other little thing. If they get to the point where they burn out and they decide they want to take on another career, they might do that. But the people who are, it gets to the point like, what else am I going to do? What else would I do? I mean, am I going to go to work for another job in insurance or something? Good Lord, come on, too old for that. Jonathan Carlos says, take the time to learn production and use organic instruments instead of generic patches or loops. Look what I got here. Use this the other day in a very organic way, kind of just beating on it rather than shaking it. And there's just all sorts of things that organic stuff does. I'm actually thinking about getting a guitar to play along with some of my guitar VSTs. And yeah, I have the advantage. Well, it's not an advantage. I worked as a producer for 20 plus years. Since the 90s, I've been working as a music producer. How many people can say that? And I still am doing it, and I still am supporting myself with it. That's called staying with it and hustling. Shane says, where I live, a six-figure income is certainly attainable through private teaching alone, but I know this is a skill that is not easily accessible. But oftentimes, I think this gets overshadowed. Yeah, we're going to talk about teaching in a minute. Don Marshall says, can I distribute my songs if I have given exclusive to a sync agent? Yes, you can. The sync agent is only taking a percentage of the sync income. As far as, I want to make sure that's your contract. As I was talking with Jonathan, who was on the podcast last month and will likely be on the podcast again, Jonathan says that, because I asked him these questions after our podcast about working with his sync rep. And his sync rep gets one thing, 30% or 25% or whatever the percentage is of the fee the company pays to use the song. That's it. Now, I don't know what your deal, Don, is with your sync agent, but most sync agents are interested in one thing, their percentage, like selling a house. They get a percentage of the house, of the sale. And that's all they get. They don't get a royalty later. They don't get your money from distribution. They don't get content ID. All they're interested in is sync. In a similar way, even exclusive deals with libraries are mostly interested in sync and in PRO backend through publishing. They might have a problem with your distributing it to Spotify and stuff, if that's in the contract. They didn't used to, and now they're getting a little bit weirder about it. But sync agents, no, that's not I don't think that's a thing. But depends on your contract with that sync agent. I don't know. All right, so let's talk about this. 85% of people say they do more sync music in 2025, and I think that's smart. However, there is a caveat. There's always a caveat, isn't there? People have come up in stock music licensing, and they've done so because it's very impersonal. It's pretty simple. If you can create a song that sounds pretty good, you can put it up to Pawn 5, like in 5 minutes, and they'll accept it within a day, and they don't reject much. And you'll have all you want, and whether it works or not, then you put it up to Motion Array. But none of those things, not one of those things requires you to do what it takes to do work in sync, which is, number one, reach out, network, build relationships, build trust, talk to people, talk to the president of the library I was talking to about earlier that called me yesterday. And we had a nice long conversation, and today asked me to send some more music and things like that. Those are personal relationships. And someone mentioned this to me recently. I think it was on my Discord, and he said, Most people who are doing stock won't do sync because they're not willing to reach out and talk to people and take their music. First of all, like John just said, take it to the next level where it's going to be so high that it can be used behind television shows and things like that. And then take that music and then reach out and find the libraries and do the networking that it takes to build relationships in this business and continue to improve. I'm still continuing to try to improve my productions and be unique in my productions. And many stock producers are just fine to write the same song for YouTubers over and over again. That's not going to work in stock. That's not going to work in sync. That's not going to help you. It's probably not going to work in stock either. But it's not going to work in sync in 2025. It's too competitive. You've got to be reaching out. You've got to do things that most people wouldn't do. You've got to come up with your own style. And actually, this is the way it is with all clients in music. If you're going to produce for people, you're going to have to do this too. You've got to have that something else. Just like any artist, this has been the way it's been with artists for 100 plus years. You've got to have that something. And libraries, if you want to work with sync libraries, non-exclusive or exclusive sync libraries, you've got to make connections and you've got to build a relationship with them, and you've got to be able to serve them when they bring you a brief and they said, I need, Eric, from you personally, I need you to do this. And you need to say, got it, and do it, and keep your mouth shut and move on. Sync reps or agents who want your songs, they're looking for artists and producers, but still they need finished songs, and likely they're not looking for instrumentals. I don't think sync reps and agents are really sitting around going, boy, if I only had a good tension song today. They are looking, they might have a need for tension when it comes down to the wire, and they'll just go to a library and get it, I would imagine. I've had a sync rep, Mark Freezer, on this show, and he talked a little bit about this, so you can go look at that video. And music supervisors probably don't have time to talk to you personally. They're going to come to you through a sync rep or through a library. But it's all about relationship there. Building that relationship, building trust over time that you can deliver the kind of music they need. And that's just a long, long road. And I think most people prefer the quick road of just uploading your song to Pond 5 and saying, well, I uploaded to Pond 5. I don't know why nothing happened. And that's why my poll says that there's, 1 to 50 songs they've put up, and they're one of the 1 to 50 lowest paid people in the next poll. So that's what it's going to take. If you want to do more sync in 2025, you should. Absolutely. I think it's something you should do. Along with all your other incomes, I think you should do sync. I talked to someone yesterday and I said, do you think it's possible? And he's at a place where sync is about 40% of his income. I said, do you think it's possible for this to become your number one income, your only income? He said, I think it's possible at some point. But this is someone who's been in it for 5-10 years. And I've been in it for 5 to 10 years, and it's not close for me yet. But mainly because I feel like I don't have the quantity out there yet. And I'll just tell you that. There's got to be quantity. So sync, yes. Should you do it? Well, it depends. Is your quality high, and are you going to put a lot out there? Yes, but sync libraries is a betting system. Everything's a betting system. Spotify's a betting system. Stock music's a betting system. Trying to get jobs over someone else in music production is a betting system. Going to a job that you get, let's say you go work at a bank, that's a betting system. Maybe they don't like you. Maybe you won't like the people. Everything's a betting system. That's ridiculous. I mean, not like I'm not happy with that comment. I appreciate that. But to some extent, man, everything is a betting system. Everything is a chance thing. And yeah, you are waiting and you are building that, and you have to wait for sync libraries. But it's not a betting system if you've got 2,500 songs up there. It's a betting system if you've got 1 song, 10 songs, 2 albums. But when you have hundreds, thousands of songs up there, it becomes less of a betting system. And then you get briefs that are directed to you to get music for a specific show, to go on a specific episode, and then the betting system becomes smaller and smaller, and the odds get better and better. May the odds be ever in your favor. Let's go on into streaming, which means Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube Music and everyone else. 74% of the people in our polls have either less than 50 songs in streaming, or they don't distribute their music at all. Christian and I talked about Spotify last week, and I love the way he put it. Spotify with the intent to sync. It sounds like a crime, doesn't it? You've been charged with Spotify with an intent to sync. And when you look at artists who are doing very well, they do Spotify with the intent to also do artist videos and shorts and things like that push people back to Spotify. And it's just sort of endless circle of using YouTube and TikTok and Instagram to do stuff that pushes their streaming. Admit it, you probably put your music to streaming, but what else do you do? Stock music may be fading. Stock music, I think, is going to see a big decrease in 2025. But people will also say, Spotify doesn't pay anything. It pays less than, I'd rather have 17 cents for Motion Array per download than a piece of a penny on Spotify. And I get that, and I do that. But do you work your Spotify? Do you push people there? Do you have a meta ad strategy? Do you have a short media strategy to get people watching your Spotify? Are you doing Spotify and then working with a sync rep or sync agent to say, hey, I just put a new single out. Do you have any interest in this? Spotify is great as long as you are pushing people there, as long as there is a strategy of some kind. If there's no strategy, then for any of this, yes, the comment a little while ago about it being a bit of a betting system. Yes, licensing is a bit of a betting system because you're going to put it up there and hope people are searching for it. But guess what you can do with that? You can be searchable. And in the same way, you can work harder on your Spotify, especially with Spotify itself. It has so many tools to get people there and build your listeners and all that kind of stuff. And I know people like my friend Mark, he has tons of stuff up on Pandora, and he's using Pandora Amp and all the Pandora tools. He's using tools with many other places, Amazon, and there are lots of tools to use if you dig, but most people don't dig. They just put their stuff up and they go, hey, and they celebrate the fact that they even got it up on Spotify. And that is just not going to do it in 2025. You've got to work it. You've got to watch Andrew Southworth and Tom Dupree III, and you've got to listen to what they say and follow their advice and maybe even hire them and build your followings from 7 followers or 0 followers to hundreds or thousands of followers if you want Spotify to pay. But that means you're going to have to put investment into Spotify. You got to put investment into these things, whether it means time or whether it means money. You've got to put investment in. We've all put in our 10,000 hours who are doing this professionally, or 20,000 or 50,000 hours. You've got to too. If you don't, then it's fine if you just want to do this as a hobby. But $60,000 or $70,000 doesn't come from it being a hobby. $60,000 or $70,000 comes from it being a passion and just busting it like no one else, more than everybody else that you know. Getting back to Shane's comment, sheet music. I forgot this in my polls. I don't know why. Do you have music that would work for sheet music readers? Who are sheet music readers? Well, Shane just mentioned it a minute ago. He talked about it right here. He said he makes it for orchestras or for middle school bands and high school ensembles. There's choral work to do, singing arrangements that you can do. You can do all these arrangements and sheet music for all kinds of popular music, that even cover tunes can all be done and sold. It's just how much will you put into it? Shane puts a lot of time into it. I'm starting to put more and more time into it. And it's one of my pushes for 2025, to the point where I have several partners who are working with me, and they are working on my sheet music while I work with them on their songs. This is the kind of effort you have to put into it. Either that or you got to pay somebody to take your song and make sheet music out of it. But it needs to be, just like with Spotify, who you're going to Spotify listeners. How do you get Spotify listeners listening? Well, you do ads to get Spotify people who are already on Spotify or interested in Spotify over to Spotify. Same with sheet music. Who are you writing sheet music for? Who's your audience there? Well, it's not people listening to Spotify. It's not people at your gig. It's people who are on a sheet music site who are looking for a piece of sheet music for church the next day. Or they're looking for a piece of sheet music for their choir to sing in the fall festival, or a Christmas song, or an Easter song at a church. There are people looking for sheet music. And if you're not making music for the people, then sheet music is not going to do very well for you. So thanks for that, Shane. Appreciate that. Let's move on to the next thing. And this is the one that I harp on every time I start talking about how you can make music income. Now, 2025 can be your year. To want to talk about how to get to $60,000 or $70,000 music production. You are already making music. Almost 60% of you who took part in my poll do not produce for others. You might want to think about it. You want money in 2025. You want to quit your job to do music? The way I did it was I started making music for other people. I didn't want to. I had a producer. I said, I really don't like just sitting here and having to make music for somebody. He goes, well, that's fine. There's a tire store down the road that needs somebody to change tires on cars. You could go work there. Or you could sit here and make music for people. So you want to quit your job. You want to make more money. Start offering the beat making or the production work you do for Pond 5, or you do for Motion Array, or you do for Sync, and offer that to other artists. Get on Sound Better, get on Upwork, get on Fiverr, and start showing off your work and get work. And be sitting around making music all day for money. Show them your Spotify, your Motion Array catalogs, your Sync catalogs, your Disco, your SoundCloud. Show them your Spotify account. The clients are out there that need production. Listen, probably 90% of the world can't make music like you can do it. They don't know Logic. They don't know how to. They don't want to. All they are is singers. All they are is just musicians, or they have ideas for songs. Somebody needs to serve them, and they don't know who that is. It could be you. And so talk about a way to make money. Music production is a way to do it. And many of you are already skilled at producing music, and you are producing for no one but yourself. And then you are not making the money you want to make, and you're like, why am I not making the money I want to make? Well, it depends, and this depends on how badly you want to make money with music. If you want to keep it a hobby and just enjoy writing your own songs, then that's fine. That likely will not take you to the $60,000 or $70,000 mark that Lovely Fishing Rod was talking about. So let's get to the next things here. Live shows and gigs. This is another one. 62% of you do not make any music income as an artist through gigs or merch sales. Are you not artists? Do you not play music? Granted, it's very hard. And it may be hard to find places to gig in your area. I get that. And I am not a performer and don't enjoy it. But if you want money in 2025 and not down the road with licensing, there are opportunities at bars, restaurants, senior centers, and much more that can pay you next week. And I said senior centers. I said old folks' homes, hospitals. There are lots of places where people can make music and get paid $100 an hour, $200 an hour. I know people who go and play a piano at a hospital and get paid $100 an hour. There are ways to make music beyond just being up on a stage with a band and going through that whole thing. So live gigs and shows, I think, is something that I know a lot of people do, and is something that if you're looking for money now, right along with music production, I think is something you can do. Another thing that you can do right away for quick money in 2025, it's not one you're going to be happy with. 76.4% of you say you are not making any music income from teaching. And we just heard from Shane talking about teaching. And like he says here, the millions and millions of kids and young adults taking music lessons. And like I said, I have talked to at least 3 people this week who make the majority of their income every month to pay their rent, to pay all their bills through having a class of students or a bunch of students that come every week. One lady had 40 students. And they didn't even come to her home. She taught them online. She teaches online. There's a company that I worked for before I started teaching locally called Lessons in Your Home. They're probably around your area if you're in the US. Or there are other companies that they don't rent out teachers, but they do pay people to go and teach in people's homes. And guess what? These people, they live in nice homes. The majority of the homes I went in were way better than mine. And they were living nice. And their kids needed lessons. Or sometimes it wasn't a kid. Sometimes it was an older person who was retired who wanted to learn how to play piano. So you want to quit your job and do music full time? Teaching is a way you can do that. And private teach in your home. Use another company. Teach online. You have a unique background that others do not have, no matter who you are. You can talk about how you've made money online. You can talk about your background. Everybody can help somebody. You got to help people. Bet on yourself. Try a few students and see how it goes. What can hurt? What can be the hurt of trying to do a little teaching? It never really is a bad idea. Nick B. Design says, how much do you know how to charge? Well, in all things, you need to ask me. No, you need to look at what other people are charging. If it's for teaching, what are other people charging for lessons? I think the normal rate is somewhere around $30 to $45 per half hour, I would say. Shane, you could probably add into this. For music production, I think it's fair I usually charge a per project, per song. And so if somebody comes to me and they say, I want you to make a song for me and do a light track and then just give me the track and I'll record it. Well, maybe that's $300 or something like that. Or if they want me to produce the entire thing where they're going to, let's say they're in your town and they want you to produce a song, then they could hand you $300 to $600 to, it depends on if you're using other players. There's a lot of things in production that are variables there. But all of these things, especially teaching, I think you can probably figure out by looking at other people's rates. All right, so finally here, I want to talk about church work. And again, I have Shane in here, and Shane is certainly a person who does this. I've done this quite a few times. There's probably other people in here who have or are doing some kind of work in your church where you are paid something. For those of you who fits, you already likely know where you could do this at. I just heard yesterday from one of my clients who got hired to a new church and doubled his salary from his last church he was working at. You don't have to be the music leading guy, by the way, to make money at a church. I know many engineers who make a good side income by being who run the soundboard at a church and maybe the lights and make sure the tracks play or record the service or part of the video team. There are so many big churches at least in the US, that need technical people as well as music leading people or music players. You'd be surprised. There are some churches, mega churches, and even medium to bigger churches that are paying people to play and sing on their teams. So if that's something that fits in your life and you are a church person or don't mind working at a church, it's good for you. You should go work at a church. It's never a bad thing. And I think that it can be another side income for you for 2025. And so I would encourage that. But more than anything, I think you've got to do more than one. Talk about how to get to 60 or 70K. I don't do that by just doing a YouTube channel, by just doing sync, by just doing stock, by just doing teaching or courses, by just doing music production. I get it by doing all of them. Sheet music, all of those things that I've talked about here today. Do you want to go full time in music? Do 2, 3, 4 of these things. I think most people here can identify with that who are making a living in music. They're doing it and they're making a living because they're doing all of these things. And so I think multiple music incomes is the real thing for 2025. 2025. And that might include stock music for you or sync licensing for you or any of the other things that I've talked about here. Shane says, I charge $90 per hour. This is for lessons, but I think $50 is a great place to start to help build up your teaching studio. I want to thank everybody for being here today. It's been a fun talk. This is way more information that's going to be in one video. So I will chop this up and put it out in some different videos this week. Remember that if you're looking for a partner and you have a service to offer, if you like to do sheet music but would also like to work with me on producing your music, that's something maybe we could trade out. Or you can straight up hire me to produce music. Positive Spin Partners, it's 100% focused on sync. Our goal is to get things signed, and I have so many briefs happening that my partners are struggling to keep up with me because they are, and some of them I'm struggling to keep up with them. But we have so many things happening, different briefs coming in every day, different albums that need songs, different tracking possibilities coming up, so many things that are coming. If you want more information on it, email me personally at eric@makemusicincome.com. All right, everybody. Well, I think that is about it for me today. Make sure that you go to the site, see all the links below here, and make sure you go to makemusicincome.com and get something for free. I've got to run and talk to another client and then go to Nashville online and do some things there. So thanks so much for being part of the show today. And I hope you have a great weekend. And I hope this has been helpful. Hey, at least it's been long. So we'll talk to you next time. Thanks so much for being here. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.